Listen Up, presented by Dempsey's in Sportsland, alongside, you know who it is, Ryan
Renner.
Phil Becerra, and Ryan. We're here to recap another incredible game by the UConn Huskies on this Saturday evening. Ryan, it was pretty much what we expected yet again, 78-41 victory, 78-41 over the Xavier Musketeers, as the Musketeers dropped to 6-9 on the season. And we can't call it the young season anymore. It's starting to be, it's getting into the where you turn up the heat a little bit. I know it's hard. We actually literally have to do that in here in your house and my house, because I mean, it is freezing. We're under a winter weather watch, and it's going to be some snow coming. But anyway, Ryan, we'll get right down into it. Connecticut Huskies improved to 9-3 on the season. I expect them to maybe jump a couple more spots up in the rankings. We'll go over that at the end of this episode. But again, Ryan, not much you can complain about when your team goes on to, again, score 28 in the first. It's looking pretty good. Again, with Paige Beckers sidelined with that injury, it's looking pretty good for these Huskies. They're starting to jump out early. The first quarter belongs to UConn all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, and it's good to see that, you know, when UConn jumps out to a big lead, and they should be jumping out to big leads against these weaker schools. Xavier, they're the second worst in the Big East Conference, 6-9 overall record now with the loss today. Only win in the Big East Conference came against Butler Bulldogs, which is the worst team in the conference. So, you know, I think UConn was kind of expected to go out against Butler and Xavier these past two games and let's say kind of blow them out, to say the least, and win by a very marginal amount. And they did their job, and maybe they do move up in the rankings, because we talked about a little bit before UConn. You know, the name UConn, when you hear it, you know, everybody around the world knows who the UConn women basketball team is. So, you know, they might move up a couple of spots, but I think this was expected by everyone around the association, that UConn's expected to, you know, win by 30 or 40 points against these weaker schools in their conference.
Okay, and yeah, you said it very well. Let's go over. Actually, I want to talk about the game coming up for UConn, although I think it's against Oregon Ducks. I'm going to have to look after we get done the box score here and the recap of the players and how the players fared in this ball game, Xavier and Connecticut. But again, Oregon, we'll get into that in just a second. Oregon is not ranked, Ryan, but they look like they could be a very dangerous team, more of a team that could compete with these UConn Huskies, especially with Paige Becker still out. I'm expecting a closer ball game in the next game against Oregon. We'll look at the date again after we go over the players. So let's start with Xavier, Ryan. Xavier, Anaya Harris. I don't want to. I'm sorry, I keep butchering these names here. These are the smaller schools that we don't always go over these names. But Harris, she's a guard for Xavier. She looks like she led the way with 12 points. She played 25 minutes, and again, we talk about it. I wouldn't say it's so important, but when you're facing smaller unranked schools like this, I just don't, again, no respect to them, but I just don't see, give respect to UConn, first of all, because whether or not it seems like nowadays, whether or not, Ryan, a player on the opposing team is coming in hot, putting up big numbers as far as points and rebounds, assists, it just seems like that UConn is limiting every single player nowadays, whether it's a top player or not the top player on these opposing teams. Because I'm telling you, because 12 points, and that's your top scorer in a ball game, and that's collegiate at the collegiate level. Man, I don't know if that's going to get it done.
Yeah, and I mean, even though these schools might not have the best record, like you just said, they're all D1 collegiate athletes, right? So they're almost at, they're at the second best level, second highest level you could possibly be at in terms of women's college basketball. So, and Nia Clark, Xavier's top scorer this season, she hasn't played since December 19th. So that's a big loss for this team. Obviously, when you
Yeah.
lose your biggest scorer, Xavier, much like Butler, two or three seniors on this Xavier team, and their leading scorer Harris today, 12 points. She is a freshman guard. So these smaller schools, these weaker schools with not so good records, I noticed a lot of them don't have that many seniors, so they're led by first and second year players. So maybe that goes to show why UConn is so good, because they just keep getting these top players. They keep them for 3 or 4 years, and they obviously have the experience because they make March Madness every single year. Gino, all the assistant coaches get them ready for this kind of stuff every single year. So I think UConn just has a lot more experience than some of these girls on these other teams, and that goes to show, especially in these type of games, that really goes to show at the end when it comes down to the third or fourth quarter, or even at the start of the game when UConn just, they just take off with a huge lead, and they make it seem like and feel like for the other team that they just can't get back into the game at all.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, you're right. It's we go over it every episode, and it doesn't get old to talk about. I'm not Gino might get mad at me for saying that. I'm not going to say that, but yeah, it doesn't get old to talk about it. But I mean, we talk about, obviously, if you're a fan, you always like to see blowout wins, as we call it, because it keeps you sitting fully on your seat. You're not at the edge of your seat biting
Yeah, you can
fingernails or
relax a
anything like
little
that,
bit,
right? You're
right?
just relaxed, right? So, but I mean, again, if you want to keep it close against UConn, it seems like it's starting to get tougher, down the stretch, only because of how they're starting to, explode right out of the gate. I mean, in the first quarter, 28 points, not only against UConn, but I think against any team that's suffering badly in the rankings. They're not going to fare well against a team that's scoring 28 to 30 points in the first quarter.
Right.
Um, so let's go over the scoring, most importantly for the UConn Huskies. How about Caroline Ducharme? Ducharme, 20 points in this game. She leads again. Ryan with 32 minutes, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. I saw an article. It was funny. I think about a day or two ago, it says with Paige Beckers out, who can quarterback this team now? And it had 4 candidates listed. And before I could even scroll down and look, I really put Caroline Ducharme at the top of my list, and it's looking like that she's starting to find a groove this season, and could really turn into a potential household name when March rolls around.
Yeah, Caroline Ducharme, she's so fun to watch, and she's just a spark of energy for this team. We've said it these past couple episodes with Paige Beckers going down. I hate to keep mentioning that, but she's really done an amazing job, almost a perfect job. You really can't ask much else from her. The way she just stepped in as a freshman guard and really took control of this team. She played 30 plus minutes again today. She led the team, like you just mentioned, with 20 points. And I'm looking at the box score here. Look at all these steals for UConn. 5 steals for Olivia Nelson-Ododa, 4 for Caroline, 4 for Nika Mule, 2 for Kristen Williams, 1 for Avina Westbrook. They had 16 steals total. That's a lot of steals. And Olivia Nelson-Ododa also with 8 blocks. So even if these UConn Husky girls don't put up the most amount of points on the team, they contribute in every asset of the box score, up and down, blocks, steals, rebounds, takeaways, everything. So even if they're not taking the most shots, like Nika Mule, she only took 4 shots, but she contributes in assists, rebounds, and steals. So everything, just seeing all these different players, that you can see that the chemistry is finally starting to come together, and these girls are understanding the type of play styles, and it's really good and fun to watch if you're a UConn fan.
It is. And talk about, I just looked now. I mean, actually, it's no surprise. She looked like that she was starting to blossom very early in her career. And I'm talking about Ducharme. Listen to this, Ryan. I thought that you would find this very interesting. She averaged 24, it's just 24.8 points, 14 rebounds, 5.2 assists, and 3 blocks through 27 games. And all New England selection as a freshman. Ducharme missed her entire sophomore year due to an injury. And I think I'm 99% sure we're talking about high school stats here, because I was curious to see what she did in high school. So it looks like she missed her entire sophomore year due to an injury. She entered the postseason with 1,652 points in her prep basketball career. Yeah, I mean, it says her hometown, Greeno High School. It looks like that she attended. So yeah, I think it's so interesting, man, because, and that's why I talk about Paige Beckers coming back from injury. I think it's so important to, sometimes it's so hard to wrap your mind around, Ryan, but you tell me how this happens. Like why does it always seem like some of the players that stay healthy throughout their whole career? Yeah. I mean, they have, again, you have to give them respect because they stay healthy. First of all, that's all, especially in sports nowadays, to stay healthy in any sport, so tough to do, to keep your body in shape, right? Eat right, and exercise right. But at the same time, it seems like we're starting to see a lot of athletes, whether it's at the high school, college, professional level. I want to ask you this. Why is it all of a sudden, like, it just seems like it to me, maybe not to you, players that come back from an injury that sets them back, holds them out for months or even the whole season, somehow they come back looking stronger than your athlete that never gets hurt.
Yeah, and speaking of injuries, I forgot to mention this at the beginning. Aubry Griffin will miss the rest of the season for this UConn team after having back surgery on Monday. So that's a big loss for this team. She's a junior this year. So recovery time expected to be 4 months. So hopefully we can expect to see her back on the floor for her senior year for UConn. But I think my answer to that would be, when an athlete goes through an injury, especially when they miss a couple months or even the whole season, I think, when you're just sitting there in bed recovering, you can't really do much except maybe watch film. I think it really puts you through the mindset of that adversary, adversity.
Adversity.
Yeah, adversity. You're just sitting there, you can't really do much. So I think it makes you realize that how lucky you have to be able to go through your whole career without getting injured. And just like that, something can happen. It could even end your whole career. So I think it just puts these athletes in a mindset that, when they come back, they make a full recovery, they're fully healthy again. And when they step back on that court, I think they really have a chip on their shoulder. And, now they realize that, any game could possibly be their last game. You just never know. Like you said, with all these injuries nowadays. So I think it really, puts you in a different mindset, and it makes you look at, whatever sport you're playing in a completely different way.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good answer. I like that a lot. And I wanted to comment. I know we promised we're trying to get to everybody's. We've been overwhelmed with the support that we've been receiving. Again, want to thank the UConn fans all the way from Maryland that are tuning in every episode to watch the recaps. We can't thank you enough for that. Let's just get to some comments, Ryan. Comments from, I know it's way late, like a month ago, but let's get to, this is back when UConn fell to unranked Georgia Tech. Remember that game, 57-44. I think that's just when around Paige Beckers, they lost her. So comment from Jest, 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 1 month ago. So she commented on the video, or he, I'm sorry, I don't know which one. I don't know whether to say he or she on this one, because it's just named Jest. So Jest. UConn is not, they said UConn is not so aggressive in both offense and defense compared to Georgia Tech. To step up, they had to have hunger in their eyes and putting the ball in to the basket and stopping the opponent's ball towards the glass. Now, let me warn you all, when you comment on these videos, I love to get Ryan's take. So not to put any pressure on Ryan Renner here, but Ryan, it's always going to be Ryan's ball game here when it comes to comments. So look, I mean, Ryan, that comment, it really stands out to me because, again, not saying anything bad about Jest, but basically they I'm not too sure if they really saw what was coming. I mean, I'll be honest with you now. The story will tell against when I think they have number 1 South Carolina again coming up in the near future, and
Yeah.
even Oregon. Oregon.
Yeah.
I'll talk about it now. I think Oregon is going in. Don't hold me to it. I think 8-3 with the 8-3 record. They're unranked in the country. But I think the story will progress as we get later in the season and we see how they fare. And I think even UConn has to play Tennessee, the Lady Vols, one more time this
I
year.
believe so. Yeah.
The first time, actually, I think. But yeah, some of them games, there are not a lot of ranked teams on the schedule. But I can't wait to recap those kind of games because that's going to get fun. Even if they keep it close without Paige Beckers again, like against number 1 South Carolina, I think that's very important because when Paige comes back, obviously, I think they're going to have a chance to knock some of these teams off and make a deep playoff run. But going back to the comment I just read you, if you want me to read it to you again, I will. I'm not too sure if this person saw these kind of performances coming down the stretch, even without Paige Beckers, because, again, Georgia Tech was unranked at the time. UConn fell to them and only scored 44 points. And mind you, I'm almost sure that they were without Paige Beckers in that ball game. But now, fast forward a month later, and you're starting to see this team kind of find its groove without Beckers on the floor. And again, I'll read it to you and let you evaluate. UConn is not so aggressive in both offense and defense compared to Georgia Tech. To step up, they have to have hunger in their eyes in putting the ball to the basket and stopping the opponent's ball towards the glass.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, and I can see their point in that game. I don't know if they're a UConn fan or not, but I can understand why it'd be frustrating. When you're a UConn fan, you've been rooting for them for a while, and you see them lose to Georgia Tech. UConn fans, UConn players, even they're not used to losing. It's just not something that they've done for the past 10 years, right? So. But when these games were televised, I was able to watch them on TV. Hopefully, that game against Oregon, I'll be able to watch that. When these past couple have been out of range for us, so we haven't been able to watch them. So, when I was able to watch some of their games, I was thinking that too. I wanted to see this team. I think I actually said it in one of these episodes a couple months back. I wanted to see them be a little more aggressive because they weren't getting a lot of free throw attempts. So be aggressive and go to the basket. And I think we've definitely been seeing that after they lost Paige Beckers. They had that COVID outbreak where they got 4 postponed games. But again, Caroline Ducharme, she stepped up in the most amazing way possible for this team. And she's really been the leader. Dorka Juhas, we keep mentioning her as well, how she stepped up, the transfer from Ohio State. Olivia Nelson-Adota, the senior, she's amazing. Talking about all the blocks and steals that she got in this game. So 16 steals in this game. I don't care who UConn plays. That's a huge amount of steals. So if they can, get that many takeaways and limit the amount of giveaways per game, and turnovers for this UConn team earlier in the season were something that was really hurting their success on the court. And I think these past couple of games, they've been limiting the amount of giveaways that they're giving to the opposing team. So I think that this whole team is starting to come together, but like you just mentioned, these out of conference games when they play Oregon, South Carolina, Tennessee, a couple of these ranked opponents, out of conference games, and opponents they're not used to playing. I think that's really when we start to see what the ceiling is and the potential that this UConn team really has.
Yeah, and I think what we go over defensive struggles too for UConn. Was that right? Even when Paige Beckers did start in the beginning of the season.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, it's unranked schools again, but I think that head coach Gino is really liking, to say the least. He's really liking what he's witnessing in the defense now. I mean, it's starting to catch fire, and that's not something that we saw right out of the gates when Paige Beckers went down with that injury. I mean, it's
Right.
again, we talk about it over how much we love sports. It's amazing to see. It's like all of a sudden the air went right out of the arena, right when Paige Beckers went down. But it's like now, man, Ryan. I mean, the defense is all of a sudden finding ways to step up big time and limit opponents to less than 50 points a game. It's amazing to see. So maybe it was just something, a confidence builder for them to get together again and say, hey, we love Paige Beckers to death. Who doesn't? We love her so much, but how can we improve going forward? Because we know if we're still in this thing, I keep telling you that if we're still in this thing come March, man, I mean, we'd love to see her back on the floor, and we have a chance.
Yeah, it would be an amazing return to see her in March Madness, to return to this team. And I think, talking about the defensive struggles early, Paige Becker's going down, but even when Paige was on the floor, this team was struggling a little bit with defense, giving up 60 to 70 points a game. That's not good at all. But Nika Mule, she's been in the starting lineup ever since she came back for this UConn team, kind of getting the same amount of minutes as Aaliyah Edwards and Avina Westbrook coming off the bench. But Nika Mule has been in that starting guard position along with Caroline Ducharme and Kristen Williams for UConn. And like I've been saying, Nika Mule, she doesn't take that many shots per game. But like today, I already mentioned 4 steals, 5 assists, 6 rebounds. So even though she's not scoring, she's contributing in all the other categories to the stat sheet. So this team, like I keep saying, I think they're really starting to come together. Butler and Xavier, the confidence boost, like you said, for UConn, getting very marginal wins, 30-40 point wins. So Oregon, I think I agree with you. It's going to be tough out of conference game, but I think we'll really start to see what this UConn team is made of.
We're almost out of time, Ryan. So we'll quickly go over. I want to go over one more comment with you, and then we'll go over where we think UConn will move on. I guess still with MLK Day, I'm sure that they'll still bring out the new rankings. I'm not too sure about that on Monday. Yeah. We're almost out of time. Let's go over. I want to thank Paul Singer. About a month ago, he commented on our episode UConn Huskies when they routed Seton Hall 74-49. I think they have another meeting with Seton Hall coming up in the near future. I saw on the schedule. Let's go over his comment. I mean, this is pretty straightforward. I'm sure you and Gino Ariema alike would agree on this one, and you would love what Paul Singer said. He said, "Play the bench, Gino, and build the confidence of Nika, Caroline, and Dorka, and you'll win the NCAA." Hey, that's okay. Well, that's pretty much straightforward. So Paige Beckers wasn't even mentioned in that comment. I think that was pretty interesting. Although, again, I'm not disagreeing with Paul Singer. But Paul is, I'd like to agree, now, especially a month later, I would love to agree with this comment. And I do, because right now it's not guaranteed that Paige Beckers comes back. Let's hope she does, like we've always seen her play at her full potential, but you don't know what you're getting out of her, Ryan, when she comes back. So I think it's he really had some big names there, and I think he hit them on the dot. The big 3 behind Paige: Nika, Caroline, and Dorka. And Ryan, what do you think about Paul Singer? What he said? He said if Gino plays the bench right, he'll win the NCAA.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he was pretty spot on. So I think he definitely knows what he's talking about, because those 3 names that he mentioned, Caroline, Nika, and Dorka, where are they right now? They're the starters. So he moved them from the bench to the starters. And Avina Westbrook, Aaliyah Edwards are on the bench. And just those 2 players alone could probably be starters for almost every single D1 college school in women's basketball. So that just goes to show the amount of talent on the UConn Huskies team. So I totally agree with that. Gino gets all these talented recruits. and let them play. You know, let them show you what they're made of, and why they deserve a spot on UConn. And just like what Caroline Ducharme is doing, leading scorer for these past couple games, she's really doing it all. So, I think he hit that spot on.
Yeah. One more. I know I said that was the last one, but one more. I'll go ahead and we'll go over these to knock them out. These comments. How about Charles Taylor? Thanks, Charles, for commenting on the video. The last one, Paige Beckers. Well, actually, this is December the 5th. So Paige Beckers was injured. Okay, all right. So that was my mistake. So it looks like the past couple games, did Paige Beckers not? I mean, did they lose? They didn't lose to Georgia Tech when Paige Beckers was still on the floor. There's no way.
No, she was already injured. I'm almost certain.
Okay, so okay, all right. I'm sorry. I'm going. Yeah, all right. I'm actually going even further back. UConn defeated Notre Dame 73-54. That's more like it. So Paige Beckers was in most of that game, and what she fell out with that injury right at the end.
Yeah. That's the game where she got injured with like 30 seconds left in the game.
Okay, so Charles Taylor, it looks like maybe a relative to one of these players, or he knows the team, one of the players on the team very well. So he goes, Ryan, let's see what Ryan Reynolds thinks about this one. He goes, Olivia Nelson-Ododa, GM. I believe that's good morning. How are you doing, baby? And Olivia Nelson-Ododa. Have a great day, baby. And Olivia Nelson-Ododa, I love you so much. And Olivia Nelson-Ododa, stay safe. And Olivia Nelson-Ododa, stay warm. And Olivia Nelson-Ododa, you are so fine. Well, okay, so let's talk about the potential that these girls have on the team, huh? Hey, I'm not going to lie with what Charles said. Stats-wise, when you look at the box score, they are some fine stats. I'll tell you that much. I'll tell you. So, yeah, I mean, we'll let Ryan go over his breaking down on that comment. Pretty much, yeah, he's basically saying, look, I'll agree with him on that too. You know, it's like fine wine, right? I mean, they're improving as the weeks go on, right? I mean, you look at the box score and heck yeah, it's looking fine to me with the numbers they're putting up.
Yeah, Olivia Nelson-Ododa is one of my favorite players to watch on this UConn team. She's a senior for this team. And just looking at the box score again today, 8 blocks, 5 steals, like I already mentioned, 4 assists, 6 rebounds, 5 for 10 shooting. She scored 11 points, 28 minutes for this team. So really all this season, she's contributed in all the categories in the box score. But she's just so fun to watch, the way she maneuvers around the court, gets all the rebounds. She's pretty tall too. So I think she's going to be a pretty good player in the WNBA. I'm sure she'll get drafted. But she's a key piece and she plays a key role on this team. 8 blocks is pretty impressive. I can't remember the last time I've seen someone in women's college basketball get 8 blocks or even men's. NBA, that's hard to do. So yeah, Olivia Nelson-Ododa, I agree with him. She's one of my favorite players too on this UConn team.
All right, Ryan. Well, that does it on this episode. Again, the next one would be against the Oregon Ducks, and that is, I'm looking now, it looks like it is, yeah, looks like they have a meeting with the Oregon Ducks. They visit Oregon January 17th, so at 5 o'clock. Not much time to turn things around. Quick practice for Gino, and they actually play on the MLK holiday, the Oregon Ducks. Again, it looks like that they're, yeah, I don't have the record right in front of me now, but I think they're pretty good. I think they're pretty good. They're unranked, but I think they're pretty good. And I think they'll pose a big threat to Connecticut on Monday. Looking for a little bit closer ball game. If not, that's fine with me, Ryan. You can still sit back in your seat and not spill any Cheetos.
Yeah, that's right.
It's been presentation of Listen Up Maryland presented by Dempsey's and Sportsland. Ryan, enjoy the NFL playoffs.